Going on YouTube, Cloverbills here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be updating our regulationE tier list for the final month, which is right now, December. So we still have a couple more regionals to wrap up regulationE. We still have the Stuttgart regionals. We still have San Antonio regionals, of course, in 2 weeks. So I figured let's just, update our previous month's tier list one last time, just to see where we're at finally, in terms of like where the meta is heading into these regions. All right, so we have the S tier, we have the A tier, a B tier, C tier, and then a don't use tier. And then this is actually a relatively newer tier list that I have, and some of these mods that you see at the very bottom, they were not originally there in the previous website that I was using last month. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place these after we discuss some of these other mods. But just to discuss the tiers again, the S tier is what I call the best of the best. Right, they have the best stats, super strong abilities. You'll see them, 9 times out of 10 on ladder, and for, of course, good reason, right? The A tier, these are your strong and consistent options. Maybe not as splashable as like the S tier, but still like very, very good core pieces that you'll see in terms of your team building options, right? Then you have the B tier. These are what I call your solid options. Still very good, within the given meta, still strong options. Maybe they have like either a hindering stat or maybe not a great ability in terms of usage, but still not as good as some of your A tier options, but still like very, very good and still have good results. C is your niche tier. Now again, I always like to say with the C tier is these are not bad Pokemon. You can win a tournament with some of these mods, or you can even like top cut, but they're only good and used on very, very, very specific teams. Maybe just like one kind of archetype in general, and then outside of that archetype, you're just not going to see them at all whatsoever, right? And very, very rarely will you see some of these mods. They'll get like maybe less than 1% usage, but they have been used, right? It's just not very successful altogether, right? Outside of that one niche. Okay, then you had the don't use tier. So actually this tier was a lot bigger in our previous video when we did it last month, but this website did not have a lot of those D tier mods available. So that's perfect because we weren't going to discuss any of those D tier mods anyway, right? So whatever was left from the previous month, this is what I was able to put here. Clefable, Diplin, the Volbeat, the Gliscor, and the Ambipom. All right, you're never going to really see these, okay, within the VGC meta, at least not in this stage right now in regulationE with 2 more regionals to go. Okay, so the way this tier list is going to work in terms of like this video now is we're going to move stuff up and move stuff down, right? Whereas previously we had to like put things from scratch, but we're just going to, rock with what we got from the previous month and see if things stay in the same place, or like I said, if things are going to move up or if things are going to move down based on what we saw within the past 2 months or so. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start moving things down. Okay, so right away I'm looking at the S tier list, and the one thing I do want to move down is actually the Heartflame Ogerpon, and I'm going to move it down to the A tier. Originally it was actually really, really strong in the S tier. It was the most used Ogerpon at a time, right? So it was very, you get a +1 attack boost, you're hitting things very hard with your IV Cudgel, you get a mono fire typing, and then at the same time you get your grass coverage, that you can use against water types potentially, especially if you're able to outspeed it. It was a great S tier option, and all of a sudden it dropped a little bit, and it even dropped outside of the top 12 usage in some of the more later regionals. That's because of this guy right here. Hisui Arcanine was taking the spot in terms of the S tier slot, and even like the Heatran technically. So but that being said, it's still like a very, very good option. Like you'll still see some Swords Dance Heartflame Mass Ogerpons, still hitting things relatively hard for big damage, and it's still a very, very good Pokemon, especially if like a Landorus on your team, for your Intimidate option. So, if you don't want to use the Arcanine and you still want like a strong fire type, you can definitely still use the Heartflame Ogerpon. I think it's still very strong, definitely deserving of the A tier for sure. All right, especially with that grass coverage, and like we said, still gets Follow Me, still gets, like I said, Swords Dance. Still a very, very good hard hitter. Okay, and then as far as like everything else here in the S tier, Cresselia, that was the one I had to like really, really think about. Like it's still very, very, very good You know, if anything, it might be like the bottom of the S tier, okay, or at the very least, like really, really strong within the A tier. I think I'll drop it into the A tier. Like, you know, this one was a tough one. Like, it's still one of the best trick room setters that we have. You know, not named Dusclops, of course. And, you know, Lunar Blessing is extremely powerful, especially when it comes to, you know, status healing. And it's a great partner for the physical Ursaluna, of course. We already know that. Still gets proven results, you know, even at this stage. So, you know, for that reason, you could make the argument that it's still within the S, but I don't think it's as dominant as it was, you know, in Regulation D in terms of like its uses. I think it has dropped a little bit just because something like Roaring Moon has soared through the roof. Okay, so for that reason, you know, I am willing to consider to drop it into like the very, very high A tier, or even like as low as like the S minus tier if I even had an S minus tier. But it's still an extremely good Trick Room setter, and you don't even have to necessarily play it in Trick Room. Like, I've still seen this with something like Cresselia, Heatran, Amoonguss, Landorus kind of idea, you know, the old Chalk Core. That's still like very, very good. So but I don't think it's S tier, right? At this moment, I think at worst it's high A tier. At best, it's like very low S tier. But that being said, okay. Then as we go down here for the rest of the list, is there anything here I really want to move down? I think Kamo, like, I know it has that success, you know, with Michael Zhang's team, but like outside of that, you know, I understand it does have like good synergy with Sinistra and like Clefairy and that kind of idea. Is this still like A tier? I want to say, yeah, I want to drop it, but at the same time, I don't want to drop the Kamo. It's a little tough. You know what? I think I will. I think I'll like keep it in the top of the B solid tier. Like, I think maybe part of it was like shiny new toy syndrome. You know, people were really, really trying to make Kamo work, you know, with the Terra Steel stuff and the Clangrene Souls, the Clangrene Scales. But then eventually that Iron Defense body press started to trumpet, and then you just don't see it used as much as it once was used in the online tournaments. But it's still like very, very good. I don't think it's as good as some of these other A tier options, but it's still like quite solid in my opinion. Okay. Now in terms of like everything else here, like Amoonguss is still good in the A tier. You can almost even put it in the low S tier. Dragonite, yes, I do agree, still stays. Okay, anyway, let me before we even talk about everything else, let's see like what else I want to like move down here. No, I think this is still okay. All right, so in terms of like our B tier, is there anything else in the B tier I want to move down into like the C tier? No, I think everything is also pretty good here in terms of like either staying or moving down. How about the niche tier into the don't use? Let's see, anything moving down here. Man, am I? You know, I'll put Chrono down here. I think, yeah, I don't know if anyone's really gonna try and consider using this thing. I can't really consider that niche. I mean, adaptability, okay, maybe, but nah. All right, you know what? I'll keep it in the C tier. I think it's still like better than some of these guys down here. Do I want to move anything down here from anything else? No, they all have like a relatively specific niche that you almost never use, right? So it is a little bit tough. I don't think I move anything down specifically in the D tier. Like, these all have had some usage in some shape or form at least once, okay? And, you know, at least a top cut result, but nothing really like super strong or super solid. Like Garganical, for example, right? Garganical actually won a regulationE tournament, you know, last week. So, you know, I can't put it in the D tier, even though you almost never see this thing in you know, regional play. It still has gotten some results in the online tours. So, you know, people are exploring it. So for that, I can't really put it in the D tier. And I think everything else is like relatively standard in terms of where we want to keep it. But now I guess let's see if we want to move things up. All right, in terms of like moving up, yeah, I think the easiest one is this thing right here. The Hisuian Arcanine, 6-time regional champion Hisuian Arcanine, as many quote-unquote championships as Michael Jordan, as we will say. Okay, that tweet completely blew up. That was very, very surprising. But look, Intimidate, strong physical attacker, Rock Slide hurts a lot, Stab Rock Slide especially, Choice Band Arcanine with Chen Pao especially, you know, very, very hard hitting, and then Tornado Speed Control, super, super good. you know, Terra Blast, Terra Fairy is the dominant set at the moment. You can also run it in terms of a support set with Citrus Berry, with Will-O-Wisp. So for that reason, Arcanine definitely their premier Intimidate option as of this moment. Looking at the other A tier options, is there anything else I want to move up into the S tier? No, I think everything else is like pretty good here. Like you could make the argument for Amoonguss into the low S tier, but I don't think it's that. I don't think it's there just yet. You know what? I will do it. I will do it. I will put Amoonguss back into the S tier, but I'll put it into the low S tier just because there's still like enough Ogre Pawns running around. But it's still like very, very good. And it has gotten more usage as the Regulation E format has gone. Remember in the beginning, nobody was using Amoonguss. Then all of a sudden, the regionals progressed and then Amoonguss cracked the top 12 once again. Okay, and it hasn't really cracked that top 6. That spot that it once had, but it's still like, you know, within that 6 to 12 range. So for that reason, you know, if you're gonna go into the top 12 usage on stream, right, then I gotta put you in the S tier. It's still so good. Redirector, you get Spore Pressure, you know, you get pretty much priority in the Trick Room games, right? You protect your ally, you know, because you're so bulky. You can get HP back if you switch it out. So lots of still strong usage with the Amoonguss. So for that reason, again, I'm gonna leave that actually in the lower S tier. I think this is correct, putting it back into the S tier. Anything else that wants to move up? No, I think everything else is good here. How about the B tier? Anything from the B tier that I want to put up into the A tier? This is tricky now. Oh, I do want to say, yo, I am so glad that I was completely 100% correct about Salamence. You know, even as dating far back into Regulation D, man, you know, this thing, again, like I said, it walls the water Urshifu. You wall the water move, you wall the fighting move, and then you get Intimidate support. And then you can even run it as a special attacker, which is something that you can't do with this Arcanine or this Landorus. And that's the main selling point of this of this Intimidator, right? The fact that you can run it specially, you get access to Tailwind, which is something that these two don't have. So, you know, great use from Salamence. And you know what? I'm going to put... It's actually doing really, really, really well in the online tours. And for that reason, that Dragon Fairy Steel Core with, like, Salamence, Kingambit, and Fluttermane is actually very solid. You know what? I'm putting it in the A tier. I don't care what you people say. You know, Salamence has started to rise as the format has gone by. You know, the more people have had success with it, the more people are using it and starting to realize its potential. But I will say, and I can very safely say... is that I thought of it first. All right, look back at our Regulation D content. You know I was using this first, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Anything else here I want to move up? No, I think Regidrago's correct here in the B tier. Like you know, outside of I do want to say, like, outside of the Tornadus Tailwind teams, you don't really see it, but there is some of those Trick Room teams where you can see it. You know, especially with the Lilligant. But I still think B tier is the correct way to put it there. Anything else that I want to move up? No, I don't think so. I think everything is pretty good where it is. How about in the C tier? Anything that wants to move? Oh yeah, dude, this thing. Woo! Oh yeah, this one. All right, we're definitely putting this right over here, and I almost want to put it in the A tier, but here's the thing: you can't really bring this Landorus, you know, into into every single game. It's very like matchup specific, but it's still, when you do bring it, it will win you the game. Okay, and you know, there's a couple of ways to run it. We even built a couple teams around it and released a rental. But just to show you the standard way to do it, you have like Tornadus here, and then you have, for example, the Ursh, right? The Urshifu Water Strike. Rapid Strike, I meant. And then you have Rillaboom, then you have Goldango. That's the item. Okay, you have this, and then you have the Hisuian Arcanine, right? This is like your standard 5-man Tailwind core, all right? And then this last slot is your flex slot. You could put Chien-Pao here, you could put Regidrago here, and then you can also start to put Landorus Eye here. This is what people are starting to pick up on and starting to use it for, because look at this. You got Tornadus and Urshifu here, right? And then you have Goldango here. Look, you got 2 special attackers here. Technically 2.5, because this Tornadus isn't really so much of a special attacker. It's more of a support mod with like special attack moves. And then you got all the physical damage here with your Fire, Water, Grass core with Arcanine, Rillaboom, and Ursh. But look what happens here. Now all of a sudden you get Rain Dance. okay, which is gonna buff the Urshifu's damage. But at the same time, you get Earth Power here, you get Sludge Bomb here, you get Protect in this slot, and now the fact that you can access Rain Dance on this Tornadus, now you can even run Sand Sear Storm with the Life Orb, and Life Orb Sand Sear Storm with Sheer Force is basically a very, very dangerous special attacking Precipice Blades, and that is a scary thought. Okay, so this is the premier way to use it right now. You can also utilize stuff with this with Roaring Moon. So for example, we'll keep the Arcanine Goldango core, but at the same time, we'll take out the Rillaboom, we'll add the Roaring Moon here. Okay, this is your 3-man core. Okay, and then we'll add the Landorus Eye. Okay, because with Landorus and Arcanine, you do have like good coverage here. And then at the same time, instead of the Ursh Water, we'll have the Ogerpon Wellspring, right? This is basically our rental, and the Ogerpon Wellspring is going to be able to support the Landorus and the Arcanine. And then instead of the Tornado slot, maybe you can have something like an Iron Hands here, and then just to have like a little bit of fake out pressure, right? And this is another way to utilize Landorus here with this Roaring Moon, Arcanine, and Goldango combination. But strong special attacker, okay? Life Orb, Sheer Force hurts a lot. I think high B tier is correct for this thing, and you know that's exactly where I'm gonna keep it. All right. What else? Oh, Indeedee armors. Yeah, I'm bumping them up, man. I'm bumping them up. Like, you know, there was a time where like late Regulation D or even most of Regulation D, Indeedee Armrouge just wasn't as good as it was right now. Okay, but then all of a sudden Regulation E happened, and now Indeedee Armrouge picked up throughout the months, and side spam has been something to respect in the team building. And for that, and it also has like really, really strong results. Lots of different cores have been able to be used with Indeedee Armrouge. Okay, so for that reason, I think in the low A tier is where we want to put this pairing. You know, Indeedee is also a great redirector and also great into like those Tornadus Tailwind teams a little bit, just because you have Psychic Terrain and you can remove priority against your Tailwind team, which is one way to really beat it. Okay, so by providing Psychic Terrain and denying priority, you know, Indeedee has great uses there. So I think A tier is correct. All right, Frigraph. No, I'm keeping that in the B tier. I think it's solid. I don't think it's like as splashable as some of these guys over here, but yeah, I think that's correct. Same with Volcarona. Mousehold, okay. And then Tyranitar, Moltres, yes. Moltres has had results every other day, so that I think that's correct. Same with Torkoal with like these Ursaluna teams. Okay. Now let's go down here. Let's keep going. Reggie, like, you know what? I think, you know, after Volvo Max Men did relatively well, you know, in LAIC, I think it's pretty okay on those Tailwind teams. Like, I want to say, like, I think Reggie Lucky was finally figured out in terms of like how to really use it and where to use it on what kind of team. It took a while, it took months, okay, but I think Reggie Lucky can finally find its niche. Now, that being said, am I gonna put this as high as the B tier as some of these other options? I don't think so. I think still in the high C tier is correct, okay? Just because, you know, it did help patch up the matchups, you know, for Torn, Flutter, and Chiyu. But other than that, I don't think you're really going to see Regieleki a whole lot. So I think keeping it in the C tier is correct. I do think I do think high C tier is the proper placement as of this moment today. I think that's all right. From here, you know, now Garchomp has had some results, but again, that just means, you know, it's still in the C tier. This one, the Enamorous, that's no, I think not all the Trickum teams need it, so I think keeping it in the C tier was correct. It's still getting like some results. Hydreigon, same thing. Like, we've had success with Hydreigon. I remember Z King made that, you know, tournament winning Hydreigon team, and then we adapted it for our use. And then, you know, guys like Miguel VGC was able to use our Hydreigon team and get some results as well in some of these online tours. That being said, I do think Roaring Moon and Moltres are like the better dark types to use, even like the Dark Urshifu for that matter. So if you're running Hydreigon, again, you have to like have a very specific niche and reason to be using it over some of those other options. So for that reason, I'm keeping it in the C tier, but it did warrant some consideration. All right, some keynote there. Everything else I think is correct in the C tier. They'll offer some form of niche role, but they're just basically outclassed by these S and A tier guys. Here's Scizor. Ting Lu. Now this one was like on the rank 1 ladder team on Showdown. Like I do see it sometimes now in some of these regulation E tours. I do think the C tier is still correct for what it can do. Same with like Jamie Boyce, Galarian Articuno. Same reason. It's good, but only very specific teams is where you want to use that. These Thunderouses, they stay. Yeah, I think I don't move anything else up. I think this is where we're at. So now what I'm going to do is just add some of these other options here into the list. Okay, so let's look at some of these options. So Charizard, you know, I feel like if I put it in D tier, I'm going to upset a lot of people. You know, technically Scarf Zard on some of these Sun teams could be used, but who's going to run that? I don't know anyone with the courage to use that right now in Regulation E. Was it used in Regulation E? Yes. Is that going to be used in Regulation E? No. And we don't have any time left for it. So, yeah. Raichu, same reason, does have, you know, a pretty fast fake out. You know, it does have Eerie Impulse, does have Charm, some other cool support moves. But other than that, I don't really know a reason to justify to use this thing over something like an Iron Hands, for example, right? So we're keeping it over there. Poliwrath, same thing. You know what? I'm even going to put this here. Don't use that thing. The Muck is also a niche tier. This people are using the stuff with like Flamigo, Muck, and then the Scovillain with the Moody nonsense. So I guess you have that niche for it, but outside of that, who's really using it? The Paldean Tauros, to me, could also go within the relatively high C niche tier. Intimidate is always going to be good in some shape or form, whoever has it. But that being said, you know, you'll have to, you know, really justify this over something like, you know, Landorus, Arcanine, or Salamence at the given moment. So I think niche tier is correct as far as like this Intimidate option, right? By the way, Arcanine Gyarados, I think still, you know what? I'm also gonna move this down here. I think, you know, again, the other Hisuian Arcanine is just a more dominant form at the moment. You know, I haven't really seen this one being used. I was being nice because like, it had better defensive typing. For that reason, I put it in the B solid tier, and I think it can still be there, just not right now. You know where we are in Regulation E towards the end, right? Abomasnow, you know, again C tier. You know, well, who's going to be using this over something like Alolan Ninetales, right? I don't know. You know, once Alolan Ninetales came out, everybody just dropped this thing. Whoever was using Snow, you know, there wasn't that many Snow users, but whoever was left was not using Abomasnow anymore, right? It's all about the Hisuian Ninetales. Politoed, same thing. Politoed had some results, actually. Politoed won 2 regulation tours, okay? Put some respect on the Toad here. So we're going to put this in the C tier because this thing actually was getting results. And I thought we built a pretty good Politoed team in that team building video. Check it out if you haven't done so already. I think that Politoed team is actually kind of cool. Glaceon, that goes right here. Gallade is also in the C tier. So Brian Collins again, you know, came up the idea to use that Gallade idea with the Urshifu onto that NDD Armor's team. You know, for good reason, because, you know, fighting is really good against the dark types, which is really good into the NDD Armor's matchup, right? So Gallade makes sense there. It also gets like sharpness, sacred sword stuff, so you get to ignore some defense boosts. So something like, you know, the iron defense stuff, or even Dondozo, Gallade can really help you in that type of matchup. Hisuian Samurott, again, hazards, along with, you know, Cleaver, you know, was an idea, very niche. People were trying it in Reg D a little bit, but, you know, I don't know people who wants to use this even right now. I almost want to put it down here in the don't use, but I don't think it's as bad as some of these guys. So, you know, Hatterene, you know, listen, if this thing gets expanding force in Regulation F, I'm gonna put it here. But until then, I'm putting it here in the B solid tier. Like, it's still good. It's great until those dark matchups, especially against like Roaring Moon, for example, like the Indeedee, Armouge, Hatterene, Torkoal stuff. That's still going to be good no matter where you use it, okay? But what is holding it back is the fact that it still doesn't have expanding force. If it gets it in Reg F, you know, with that TM, oh, we're in business. People are going to start using this thing to no end, okay? We're going to put that right here at almost near the top in the A tier, okay? But until that day, right now, towards the tail end of Regulation E, this is exactly where we're putting it. Sneasel, same thing, you know, good synergy with Indeedee, okay, with the Psychic Seed stuff, Fake Out Pressure, pretty fast Pokemon, does hit relatively hard. Poison is good into like Terra Fairy stuff, especially like Fluttermanes, for example. So for that reason, B tier. Overquill, put that thing in the C tier right there. Listen, you know, so outside of like the rain teams, I don't really see this thing being used. Kilowattrel, the Tailwind user. I haven't seen this thing used since Regulation A, but you still get Tailwind, so I'm gonna give you that niche. Bramble Gas, on the other hand, now that's being used a lot with the tornado stuff. Now this was getting used even in Regulation D. It's very comparable to Sinistra, but they also are relatively different. Just because of some of the tools that they can provide. But at the same time, Focus Sash on this thing is quite powerful, and it has proven itself to win a lot of tournaments. So, Strength Sap, Ghost Typing, strong physical attacker, the Heat Wave, Tailwind bonus that you're going to get is quite good. Again, I'm talking about Wind Rider. So, and you can pressure Urshifu too. So I like it here in the B tier. I think it's very, very good. Alright, so the Espathra here, again, very, very specific. Tinkaton, again, Fake Out Pressure, Thunder Wave, Gigaton, Hammer, Play Rough, very, very good set. Houndstone, outside of Sand teams, with Tyranitar, very rarely going to see it. But again, I want to put some of these in the D tier, but I just can't, just because they have some use. It's just nobody's going to be trying to explore it because these options are just better for what they can give you. All right. So that being said, now let's take a look at our list as a whole. Okay. So starting with like our S tier again. So we got the Arcanine back here, Iron Hands, Fluttermane, Torrent Lando, Rillaboom, Water Ogerpon, yes, is still like the most used Ogerpon right now. So that's good. The Urshifus, yes, the Chien-Pao and the Amoonguss here in the last lot. Okay. I almost want to put Heatran over here. Terra Fairy Heatran is quite strong, especially like Magma Storm stuff. I think it's like right along the Cresselia idea. Like I think it's pretty good. Like it's almost like low S tier, but I think high A tier is correct right now. Roaring Moon is the dominant archetype outside of like the Tailwind offense, I would say. So I would put this at the head of the A tier list. The Alolan Ninetales screens idea is gonna be is still like useful with a lot of teams, especially with stuff like Moltres, for that matter, or even like Baxcalibur. That's still like very, very good. Milotic, again, good competitive user. I think King Gambit is still just a little bit better than the Milotic, so I'm actually gonna just like switch their places a little bit. Dusclops, again, very comparable to Cresselia, arguably a better Trick Room setter, but it just depends on what kind of move sets you want on the Dusclops / Cresselia. I will say it is a little bit of a better partner than the regular Ursaluna, just because you can Brick Break and proc a weakness policy for that reason. You also get access to Pain Split, you get Haze, you get a lot of cool tips. But Dusclops is staying where it is. Baxcalibur, Dondozo, yeah, these are all like good A tier Pokemon. How about over here? So B tier, Headliners, Glamora, Dondozo Glamora stuff, that's going to be good. Moltres is also very, very strong. We love Moltres on the channel, of course. Dark typing, especially Dark Flying. Berserk is it requires you to play around it, otherwise it just sweeps you. Bronzong and Torkoal, yep, Torkoal is still very good on those Trick Room teams. Of course, as long as VGC exists, Torkoal is going to be great on any kind of Trick Room team. Bronzong has started to rise as of late, because of that that winning team, within LEIC, so that was also really good. Sylveon also was actually used recently last week. It actually won a Regulation E tournament, and I always say, like, look, if you can't use Fluttermane and you're in a Trick Room team and you want a Fairy type, Sylveon's your bet. 60 base speed, it can be used in Trick Room, and you also get access to Yawn, so that's also relatively nice. You can force repositioning that way. It's like again, it's bulkier than Fluttermane, but of course a little bit lacking, or it needs a little bit more setup in order to get some of its offense going. All right, Mousehole and Nihilip, I think that's okay. Still like good, just needs people to explore it. Okie dokie. All right, so this thing with screens, especially with like either Grimmsnarl or Ninetales, has been good. You're able to set it up and deal a ton of damage, especially with like Drain Punch. Like this is definitely the best of the three, of the trio, from Scarlet and Violet. The loyal three is what I meant to say. Clefairy is still good here. Yeah, again, the Tailwind offense stuff is still gonna stay within the S tier. And then everything else, I think we got correct, in terms of like their performance thus far. Volcarona, Volcarona screens that we made was good. Paul Rui's team, Volcarona King Gambit, he also had that idea as well. But he didn't have screens on his, but that's still like good. This is the Lilligant is still good with Torkoal. yeah, I think this is like worthy of a B tier. Let's go to the C tier. Um, yeah, again, like the Galarian Articuno had some results, Politoed results, Gallade results, Hydreigon, regulationE results. Um, Everything else, very seldomly used, right? Um, yeah, like even Vikavolt, I thought could get a little bit of usage. Nobody's even looking at this thing's way. The Muck is getting some use. That's because people want to troll on ladder. But you know, who are we to blame them, right? Uh, let's see, Scarlet, yeah. What else? Ninetales, okay. Yeah, I think this is it. All right. So in terms of like, what do you want to bring to a regional? Some of the C tier is still okay, but like any kind of combination, within this S, A, or B tier is what you're trying to go for, especially like within the first two tiers. So, if you had to like choose some Pokemon for your building, for these online tournaments or these upcoming regionals, definitely stay within the S, A, B tier. Like you can take some from the C tier, but I don't recommend it. I think this is as good as it gets for for the S, A, and B tier, because again, you're trying to win, right? So that being said, we're gonna leave our tier list right here. Let me know what you think of what we have as far as like our final regulationE tier list. And if you're trying to get a team going, if you need a little bit of help team building, feel free to sign up for coaching on the channel. If you look in the video description below, there is a link that you can click to join the channel with that tier 3 sub. And then once you do sub, you're able to join the Discord. You can then message me, and then we can plan out a session and get a team building session going, with that Discord call. And then I show you how to do EVs. I tell you and how to walk you through like different matchups. So it is in your best interest to do it. If you look in the comment section, I have a pinned comment where same thing. You can join the channel with that link. All right, and again, it's a tier 3 sub. It's only $10, so it's very, very affordable. We've been able to send people to their mid-season challenges and their premier challenges and help them earn CP, right? And get them started in their goals to the World Championship. So if this is your goal, we can help you get it. All right. So that's gonna do it for now, folks. We'll be back with another video in the next one. Peace out and have a good one.